Thank you, Anya. I think after Anya's presentation, I hope this isn't as boring as this. Um, so, what am I speaking about? You may have seen the title when you registered for this particular talk. A lot can happen in 9 months. Well, the short answer is about 10,000 shutter clicks, about 300 plus hours of shoot in the field across 3 locations, primarily Bangalore, Kabini, and Wayanad. And altogether about 152 different species of birds that I have recorded so far, right? And of course, a brand called Shifting Radius dedicated to this particular hobby of mine. So let me go back to April 2020 when the pandemic started. This was a post that I put up on Instagram, and something as common as a sunbird, I didn't know, I didn't recognize a sunbird, right? So you can see what I've written there. I had no idea what bird this is. From that, I have actually moved to an avid bird watcher. The reason why I put that in quote is that before I started this journey, I used to think bird watching is really boring and it's done by lonely people. I mean, think about it. You had to put an adjective to make it sound cool, right? So, well, I have no regrets. It's not a typo. Why? Because this is pretty self-explanatory. When the pandemic began, I didn't want to continue doing this for a while. So, thanks to this gentleman, not the tree, the gentleman down, that is Debabrata Bakchi. He's not here with us. I mean, he's alive. He's on a birding trip at Tatekat. I should have been with him. But it was that and that particular tree which started it all in April 2020. So that tree, if you notice, there is this one, this one, this one, and this one. 4 different holes. Think of it as an apartment complex with 4 stories. Different species of birds basically were fighting for space in these holes. It was the common myna, the spotted owlets, and the flameback woodpeckers. So the journey of watching them was quite interesting. The whole real estate space that these guys were wanting to have. Obviously, the top floor meant better view, so there was a lot of fight going on. So my entire journey sort of began with this particular tree, and Deb was primarily responsible for getting me into bird watching. But unfortunately, I didn't have fancy gear. I used to still use a kit lens with a decent enough camera body. So these were the kind of shots that I was getting. So obviously not very exciting. Once you go back and start processing the image, you see completely blurred shot like this. So you had to work at it. You sort of there was a session on wildlife photography with Vinay and Naresh. Sorry. And they did speak about how you can actually borrow equipment to start your journey, and that's what I did. So I borrowed, and it's the same flameback woodpecker, which I shot about a month later. Same body, but a different lens. So that's where I think the interest also started growing, because I think more than watching the birds at that point in time, it was the thrill of photography that really got me into this particular hobby. Bird photography in particular is very challenging because everything is a variable, right? You don't have anything in your control. You are dependent on where it's perching, what is the direction of light, what are the other things around it in terms of composition. So everything is a variable, unlike, let's say, people or architecture or any other thing that you're doing. Because if it's a person, you can say solpa side, you can do that. But you can't do that with a bird, right? So yeah, and then just these were the kind of shots that I ended up taking over the next couple of months with the borrowed lens. And I sort of soon realized that I might have to sort of invest in a lens, and others helped me get one. So pretty much started getting pictures like these. In terms of the photography itself, once you start getting better at it, then you want to start capturing stories, right? So these were the kind of stories that I was very intrigued about. feeding, trying to get food. That's a bee eater, which is looking at the food that it's going to catch, right? The roasting parakeets, which are again fighting for space with that hole. But I used to get crappy shots too. These are egrets flying and pooping in the air. Yeah, crappy shots, sorry. A couple of you got the joke. So, and then of course I had an interesting session with the Indian roller and a roasting parakeet just behind Resonance. Again, these guys seem to have real estate issue, and there was a lot of fight between these two particular birds. So I got some of these shots while trying to capture some of the birds behind Resonance. This was an interesting story that I had. Once you start observing, so here's the thing, right? Pre-April 2020, I never knew there were these many different species of birds just where we live. And then once you start observing, you start noticing things right at your doorstep. So this particular kingfisher, this is the white-throated kingfisher, was in the Edge Cluster vegetable garden one day. And I mean, this was a kingfisher that I was, actually walking and going around and seeing if I can get this particular kingfisher at some point. So I saw this guy perched on that lamppost, and soon after a second one arrived. So I was like, oh, not bad. Two in one shot. A few seconds later, I had the parent trying to feed two juveniles, so I got 3 in one. And of course, there are 4 boxes, so why not 4 in one? So, so this is stunning, right? This is right inside footprints, inside the vegetable garden. I don't think you will, if you go to a hotspot, birding hotspot, you will actually get 4 kingfishers in one frame, really, right? So that was interesting. Another story that sort of moved me was of this Asciprinia, which was building its nest in, again, the F cluster vegetable garden. Unfortunately, what happened was that when we were pruning, the gardeners, when they were pruning, they sort of exposed part of the nest, which meant that the other predators such as crows or even cats could easily catch this particular bird, because Prinias have a tendency to build nests fairly low, about a foot or 2 from the ground. So this one, ideally we shouldn't mess with their habitat really, but what happened was, because we ended up exposing this, Sangeeta and I actually ended up sort of protecting it with a few shrubs and things like that. So we covered it so that the other predators don't really get to this particular thing. But then my curiosity of how these guys actually go about building grew over a period, and I observed it for almost 6 weeks of this particular bird, basically a pair, building the nest, laying eggs, hatching the eggs, and from a distance I could actually see the little chicks actually emerging out, and then the feeding, right? Once they're out, they start feeding the little ones, and I actually managed to get the little one on day 1 of its getting out of the nest. There were 3 of them. I was like, the whole journey was like really, really nice. I ended up naming them as well. So it was interesting. Around June to August is mostly the nesting season. So you get a lot of birds nesting around that time. So that's the Asciprinia that I was talking about. There is the purple drum sunbird, this is the Baya weaver, and that's the white-browed bulbul. All of them have very different style of building their nest. In some cases, it's the females who build the nest and the male come to just check it out. That guy was doing nothing. He would just come, take a look at if everything is okay, and he'll fly back. The female did all the work. Whereas in the case of Baya weaver, very interesting, these guys actually build these nests and invite the females to come and inspect. So they'll end up even decorating the nest to make it interesting. They'll take these knickknacks from the ground, something which is shiny like a button or a pebble or whatever, and they'll actually put it inside so that it looks inviting enough for the female to sort of this thing. It's a very, very fascinating moment to watch, where the female actually goes inside, checks it out, and then she goes shopping. Basically, she'll go to the other nest and checks out other nests too. If he fails to impress her and she doesn't take up his offer, then the nest is actually abandoned after all these efforts, right? Very intricate nesting that they do. Another story that I want to actually talk about is of the black kite and the squirrel. This was right behind Tarana, where the water body is, Dodubeli Lake, whatever that we call it. This is, so I was actually shooting some birds in the water, and I saw this kite sitting, and I saw this squirrel approaching. It was very interesting. Now, this guy was fairly confused, and in fact, both of them were confused, I think. So he was trying to cross this particular path. The kite is sitting beautifully. So the squirrel is thinking, am I going to be his food? And the kite is probably thinking, why is he so confused? So there was a good 5 minutes, interesting combination of interactions between these two, almost like a conversation. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Why don't you cross? Or that fellow is like, if I cross, will you eat me? And so this was a very interesting sort of a story that I managed to capture. And very interestingly, what happened was that after some time, the kite actually moved and turned around for the squirrel to go past. So very, very interesting sort of thing. You don't normally get to see these things unless you are closely observing, unless you are in the field looking at stories to capture. So this was one of those. Thanks to this particular lake that we sort of have behind Tarana, a lot of water birds started coming in when the monsoon started. So one of my favorite being the kingfisher, the common kingfisher. This is the common kingfisher. The one that I showed earlier is the white-throated one. So these guys are very skittish. It's not easy to shoot them. So you have to sort of hide and shoot. They usually feed on fish. So these guys started coming. We had the likes of the egrets and whole bunch of herons. This is a grey heron. All of them actually right here. Where am I going with this? Basically, I'm saying that you don't need to go to fancy hotspots around Bangalore or Kabini or any of these places to get to see these stories, get to actually enjoy these kind of moments. We get a lot here as well. One of the most beautiful birds that I've clicked so far has been the red avadavat. A lot of people thought that I'm like the Pied Piper. Wherever I go, these guys follow me. So for a long time, I actually did end up seeing these guys almost on a daily basis. These guys come all the way from Ahmedabad. That is why the name Avadavat. The name comes from there. Migratory nature. They come here to breed. Because of their stunning colors, they are usually traded in cages. Earlier days, not now, I hope. The males usually are bright red in color during breeding season. Non-breeding season, they are actually pale grey. They're not as exciting as this. So these guys come in flocks. I have seen them nest. I've actually followed some of these guys across 2 or 3 different spots in and around Malhar and managed to get some of these beautiful shots. The other interesting bird that I was very intrigued about is the black winged kite. It also used to be called the black shoulder kite. This is again found right behind Tarana. There were 2 of them. They made babies. Now there are 4. They're, from a kite standpoint, they're actually fairly small. They are not very big. They also have real estate issues with the crows and the black kites. But very, very beautiful, majestic birds. They have this beautiful white and black combination. That's a black shoulder, right? Black combination on their wings. So this journey has been interesting as far as clicking birds in and around Malhar is concerned. So I ended up doing a lot of walks and bird watching, specifically with people like Chayan, Sangeeta, Adarsh, Steve and Dave. So we started exploring these species slightly away from Malhar. So ended up going to lakes in and around, which are very accessible from here, 20-30 minutes drive. The Agra Lake to which are the lakes? We've gone to the Kannahalli Lake, right? Komagata, Kannahalli Lake. This is the Agra Lake. So you end up going to these spots and get some of these guys as well. So between Bangalore, within Bangalore, I think I must have shot close to about 130 odd species. So that is in terms of numbers. Let me quickly show you something else as far as how to shoot a bird is concerned, right? This is a paddy field pipit. One morning after a good amount of rain, there was this puddle on the ground, about 1 foot and 2 feet wide. I shot this standing up. Good picture? Is that a good picture? Shouldn't ask these questions. It's very confusing.
Where is the
Sorry?
Where is the
Thank you. So that answers it. Sorry, so? Okay. So this particular shot I took standing up, right? It was there and I was standing like this and I was shooting. So I knew the moment I took the shot that something was not right. So I basically did something else and I got this, right? So this is the same bird, about 5 minutes apart, same photographer, same lens, same body, everything. This is the difference. What do you think I did? Sorry?
Did you lie down in the puddle?
Yeah. So this was the difference between those two shots, right? So you also need to understand how to shoot these birds. It's not just about observing. If you're really into, so birding is looking at birds, bird photography is how do you capture those moments, right? And you want to be able to tell that story in a way that you have seen it. So hence you will have to do some of these things to get a good shot. So what do I have from here, in and around here? Birds of Malhar. In 9 months, I think I crossed about 101 species. These are those. Right from your red-vented, red-waistcoat bulbul to the ioras and the ibises, all of them are from here. Absolutely, all of these species are shot from in and around Malhar. Right, so that was, I think, the Tickle's blue flycatcher was my 101st bird that I shot in 2020. So this is between April and December. So I ended the year with a total count of 152 birds. This was the 152nd bird shot on December 31st. This was in Wayanad. This is the, what happened? Tech trouble, okay. Chestnut-headed bee-eater, one of the very good looking ones in this particular category. I shot this on the 31st of December. So what's the takeaway? I thought I'll sort of throw some light into what it takes to do bird photography and what are my sort of takeaways from this. First and foremost, quality and the direction of light, right? Which is why we end up shooting mostly during sunrise or just before sunset. The light is almost perfect for shooting birds, and birds are also mostly active around this time, right? So you have to understand how do you use that light to your advantage. If you are shooting something, make sure that the light is behind you and the subject is in front, right? If it's in the opposite direction, if the sun is here, subject is in your here, you're obviously going to get a silhouette and not a great good looking picture. So quality and direction of light is very important. The second aspect is the composition itself. Look at how you frame it. In today's morning session, Naresh and Vinay spoke about how you can compose your image with the rule of thirds. I don't know how many of you are into photography, but if you understand the rule of thirds, try and figure out how do you compose. If a bird is look like the chestnut-headed bee-eater, if you saw, I didn't middle it. It was actually slightly towards the right because it was looking into this, right? So you have that space to sort of tell the story. So figure out how do you want to compose it quickly, change your settings to ensure that your focus is right if you're moving the subject around. Third thing is the knowledge of a particular species of bird and its activities. So I spoke about the nesting season where um, I knew for a fact that there were all of these birds nesting in and around where we live. We did a count, I think, somewhere in August, and we found within just the less than 200-meter radius, I think, in footprints, we had close to 10 nests, right? So you need to sort of understand their behavior as well, find out where they are mostly found, if they're nesting, figure out where they're nesting, but ensure that you're not disturbing them, because we have a tendency to sort of go very close and take pictures, try and get inside the nest and things like that. Try and avoid these things because they have we're intruding into their space, right? So there have been cases where because of our intrusion, they've abandoned the nest itself. So you need to be sensitive to that fact when you're, figuring out the bird and their activities. The fourth one is the background and your position with respect to the subject, right? So there are a lot of times that you think that when you shoot a bird and you have a clear background, the bird is in focus, the bird is looking good. Not entirely true. Usually what we've noticed is that if you have a green background, it's far better. When I say green background, look at the trees and bushes that are available behind and position yourself to actually get that green background. Blue background, which is the sky, sort of makes it look unrealistic. It feels like a Photoshop where you've cut out something and kept, right? So the background is also as important as the subject. The other point is the knowledge of your gear and its settings. Again, today's morning session, they did talk about this. When you're in the field and shooting, you need to understand the settings at the back of your head. Do I change the shutter speed here? Do I increase the ISO? Do I change the aperture speed, aperture length? All of these things should be, basically you need to understand your gear really well to be able to capture that right moment. Otherwise, by the time you're changing your settings, the moment is gone, right? Sometimes you have a bird just come perch and then just exit in no time. So you need to have, you need to understand your gear really well. And the last but not the least, patience and perseverance, right? Patience, obviously, very, very critical in anything to do with wildlife, not just birds, right? You're not going to sort of, we've seen this in safaris and stuff like that when you go, where is the tiger, where is the tiger, right? So you're not going to get it like that. You have to spend a lot of time waiting for things to happen because you're in their habitat. This is not a zoo. This is their habitat. You need to sort of wait around and see. I've spent hours together in one spot to see if a particular bird is coming in and doing whatever it's supposed to do. If it's a water bird, is it fishing? If it's a bird that is going to nest, are they going to actually come and build the nest around this time? All of that. So you have to have the patience and the perseverance to actually pursue stories, pursue what you see and what you want to capture. So that was pretty much the journey as far as capturing all of these magnificent birds are concerned. And this was one of the hobbies that I sort of accidentally picked up. I tend to have multiple hobbies. I've picked up multiple hobbies along the way, but I don't think I've spent these many hours on one particular hobby and hence the result. Hence a brand called Shifting Radius and all of this thing that I have done since April 2020. So What is my biggest takeaway? I think curiosity has been the biggest takeaway, because I've been extremely curious about various species. How does it get its colors? How do they actually figure out, like, how do buyer weavers actually figure out that's the way to build their nest? Or different species figuring out their style of building the nest. It's not like they're going to a classroom and learning how these things are done, right? These are sort of ingrained into their genes. So I've been extremely curious about birds and their behaviors, and this has been my journey. So that's pretty much it. So I'd like to end it with just this: stay hungry and stay curious. So yeah, that's it. It's a pretty short talk. If you have any questions.